Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks also to our sponsor, Scout APM, which you're going to hear about a little bit later in the show today. They are a application performance monitoring tool designed to help you with your performance issues without having to deal with the headache of big, huge enterprise platform stuff. So we're going to talk about them a little bit later, but thanks for joining us. Yeah, got a lot of good stuff here. Got some crazy changes with release scheduling going on, and we've got parallel testing. We got all sorts of fun goodies for you today. So, Mr. Drinda, how are you, my friend?
I am well, a little bit tired, and not self-inflicted this time. Liv has she's teething at the moment, and so
Oh, yes.
last night
Gotta love
last
that.
night not too bad, but the last few nights she's sort of been up and down 3-4 times a night, which has been a bit challenging between the two of us. And then Eli gets up and he's ready to go, and then
Yeah.
the engine doesn't stop.
Eli just reminds me of like my littlest or my oldest, I guess. When he was little, yeah, he'd wake up and be like, whenever he woke up, it was just like go time. Like
Hmm.
there is no concept of like time. It
Yeah,
wasn't like, hey, buddy, it's 4:30 in the morning. Didn't matter. Did
yeah,
not
he's
matter.
just ready to
Like
go.
I'm awake. It is wake time. That's what
Hmm.
he used to call it, wake time.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep,
Eli
it's
gets
go
up. He
time. Let's go,
goes.
Dad.
He gets up. Wake up. I slept 2 hours. Sometimes when we put him down for his nap, I don't know where this came from, this 2 hours thing, but sometimes we go to put him down for a nap and he won't, like he doesn't want a nap. So you go in there 10 minutes later and he's like, I wake up now. I sleep 2 hours. But you didn't even close your eyes, let alone sleep.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh my. Yes. The joys of nap time. I think
Mm-hmm.
my youngest is about done with naps. So we can't. The other night I was up with him till midnight. He didn't want to go to sleep. Just would
Mm-hmm.
not go to sleep. And I think it was because he took a nap that day. So it was like, we're not doing naps anymore if this is what we're going to have to pay for it. Right. So it's
Yeah.
like not happening anymore. So anyway. Hey, listen, let's jump into it. Laravel 8.22 released. Mr. Paul Redmond, everybody's favorite human. We just want to a quick shout out him as well. Thanks so much, Paul, for always writing up this great stuff. So the Laravel team released 8.22 yesterday, which would have been January 12th, with a new event fake assertion, a collection method to reduce associative arrays to a single value, and the latest changes in the 8x branch. And this is something we already talked about last time. So I'm going to move on to 8.23. Scratch that. Do that little you know that little sound effect, that little
Yeah.
that thing. You should do that.
All right.
Scratch that one.
I'll
Okay.
look for it. I'll look for it.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, here we go. Laravel 8.23 released. So this was on January 19th. So it was released with a new Sol query builder method, throw if, and a throw unless, and the latest changes in the 8x branch. So here we go. Sol was added to the query builder, which was described in the initial pull request as follows. Let's see here. It will return the only record if that matches the criteria. If no records found, a records not found exception will be thrown. And if multiple records are found, a multiple records found exception will be thrown. So instead of just first, which would return a null, you have this Sol, which will throw an exception if it's not found. Instead of having to do first or what is it? I guess it's first or fail does something like that, right? But first or fail will not fail if you have more than one of the same record, right?
Correct.
So Sol will do that, right? So if you say Sol, it means there should be one and only one record that matches this.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, then it will throw one of two exceptions, records not found or multiple records found. So it was initially contributed by Mohammed Syed and also received other updates by Mior Muhammad Zaki and Rodrigo Pedra Brum. So you can see the release notes on that one and the commits and the pull request related to that feature. There was also a default parameter added to throw if and throw unless. So throw if and throw unless are not new. What they do right now is if you say throw if, the first parameter is a truthy value. If it's true, it doesn't do anything. If it's false, the next parameter is what it will do, which it will throw a new exception for you. So with the new PR, what it will do is it will, let's see here, if the message is is an existing class that will be used as the exception. I got to expand my screen. This code is way too small. Here we go. Let's try this again. What is the difference here?
So currently, or prior to this change, you had throw if than your truth test, and then you would have to
Right.
pass like a new runtime exception. With
Sure.
after this, you just pass the message, and it will throw the exception for you.
I guess. Yeah. So that would just throw like a default exception
It'll throw a runtime exception.
always.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a runtime error, right? And then
I
so you could either
suppose.
pass the message. If the message is an existing class, that will be used as the exception. So if the second parameter is, for example, a logic exception, it will throw a logic exception instead of a runtime exception.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So it just by default sets or uses the new runtime exception,
Mm-hmm.
right? Ability to pass a message as a second parameter instead of the actual exception. Okay, sure, that's fair. I guess that makes sense. I use this. I find I use. What are your thoughts on custom exceptions? Bobby, what's his name? Bobby Bowman. Is that it? Isn't it? Is that his name? He just did a talk at Laracon EU about exceptions. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I saw the title and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. Do you guys use custom exceptions very much?
Not really.
No.
I mean, I do more so from a code perspective, like named exceptions, as opposed to
Mm-hmm.
custom exceptions having any significant meaning. Typically, I try and avoid exceptional circumstances. I don't, I want to be somewhere. I want to have an understanding of the code path. So I'm not going to throw an exception, because if you're throwing an exception, it's not really exceptional. It's like that it's going to be there, so you can handle that. Throwing an exception only to then have custom handling for it doesn't make heaps of sense to me. And it depends.
Well, so
In the context of
good...
packages, it makes sense, because you're not the one responsible for handling those exceptional circumstances. Inside
That's a good point. Yeah.
Inside applications that I build, well, yeah, I just gonna handle it, because there's no point throwing an unhandled exception if I know that there's a possibility for that to happen. I'm just gonna handle that case, because it's not unhandled if I know about it.
So like and I know we're getting off topic here. So I think the reason why I do it in a lot of instances is to kind of cut through a couple layers without having to return things back.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just want to like say I'm like 2 layers deep or 3 layers deep and I'm just want to like cut and pop all the way back out to the top layer, I'll just throw an exception and then I'll catch it at the very top. So I don't have to worry about handling anything in between. I just know that like, and in my test, I could just say, oh, I knew I threw an exception and then there I go, no problem. Interesting though. Interesting. Okay. Well, hey, listen, that's it for all of that. That's all the stuff there was in 8.22, 8.23.
Mm-hmm.
They have some notes in here straight from the change log along with the PRs. They can give you a little bit more context if you're looking for that. Thanks again to Mr. Paul Redman. That is 8.23. What else we got in Laravel 8 here, Mr. Dorinda?
Starting with Laravel 8.25, there is now the ability, first-party support for parallel testing. With the built-in artisan test command, you can now pass a -- parallel flag, and this will allow you to run your tests simultaneously across multiple processes, which will significantly speed up the time required to run your entire suite. So we've seen, since this was announced, that originally this was something that Nuno Maduro was working on and was going to go into Laravel 9. Laravel 9 has been deferred until September, and we'll talk a little bit more about the new release process for Laravel later on in the show. So the Laravel team worked hard to backport this functionality in a backwards compatible way into Laravel version 8. And so describing in the release notes, as you may know, Laravel and PHP Unit execute your tests sequentially within a single process. However, a single process doesn't use multiple cores, and therefore your test execution is severely bottlenecked. To mitigate this issue, we, Laravel, are excited to announce that parallel testing is now available in Laravel 8. Starting from version 8.25, you may use the built-in artisan test command to run your tests simultaneously across multiple processes to significantly reduce the time required to run the entire test suite. So you just update in your application the Nuno Maduro collision and the Laravel framework commands. And the first time you run PHP artisan test -- parallel, if you haven't already, it will install the necessary paratest dependency as well, and it will start running your test suite in parallel. So I've seen, I don't know about we collectively, but I've seen a number of people tweeting about this since it's been released, and and cutting down, 5-minute test suites to 2.5, 3 minutes, cutting 50 seconds to 10
Dude,
seconds, things like it's huge improvements.
mine was insane. Mine was way more than that even. Mine
Mm,
was like, I think it was like a 4 or 5 minute test and it ran in like 30 seconds.
mm.
It was crazy. Like it went so fast. It was
Yeah.
really, really quick.
So instead of running, one test after the other sequentially, so each test file, each test inside that test file doing whatever it needs to do. This is now being able to say, okay, let's grab all of the tests in a file and just send them to separate processes and run them all at the same time. And it handles, maintaining a cache. If you're using cache for each of those tests, it manages the database connection so that you don't
That's
have
the really
one.
crazy part.
That's
Yeah.
the important thing, because without that, you would have a data, one test would start and it would build up the database, and then another test is starting and they're like tearing each other down. So this maintains and manages all of that for you so that it works basically without any issues. And it is seriously fast. So it's even more, Laravel has always been about making testing as pleasant as possible and helping you, encouraging you to test, and reducing that feedback loop makes that even better as well. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. The one thing that I was sad to note that I'm sure will be changed in the future release of Pest is that it doesn't seem to work with Pest at the moment. So we'll see
Gotcha.
what happens. I
Yeah.
guess, did the parallel testing stuff for Laravel, so I'm sure
Right.
he will at some point update Pest if possible.
Yeah, I'm sure it's on his list for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was able to get it to work locally. I did not yet get it to work in our CI environment, so I'll work on that next week maybe. But yeah, I was very encouraged by the fact that it ran really freaking fast. So that was pretty cool. Even if just for local, that's really
Yeah.
nice. Like to be able to cut it down really quite
Yeah.
significantly.
Especially if you're working on discrete functionality in your app, or a new piece of functionality in your application, and you're writing some tests and you change some underlying code, and your new functionality, all of those tests pass, but then you have to go back and run the full suite. And if it's a big suite of
Yes.
tests, then you
Yep.
could be waiting a couple of minutes to find out if you just broke anything elsewhere. So being able to do it in parallel and seeing everything all at once is really useful.
Absolutely. So you talked about the release schedule. We're going to talk about that right now. Laravel is moving to a yearly major release cycle. So by major, we mean like the major version, right? From 8 to 9, 7 to 8, that sort of deal. So they announced that effective immediately, Laravel is moving to a yearly release cycle on major versions instead of the 6-month cycle that it's been on for the past few years. So Taylor said this basically. The last 4 years, Laravel has released a new major version every 6 months. So I think it started at, was it,
Laravel 6.
Must have been, was it 6? Yeah, 6 and then 7. Right. Yep, exactly. So before adopting the semantic versioning standard, the second number in the Laravel version number changed every 6 months. With the adoption of semantic versioning, the first number in the Laravel version number changed every 6 months. However, the release cycle speeds stayed the same the entire time throughout that whole transition. So even although a lot of users felt like Laravel versions were being released more frequently, they were not. They were actually the exact same speed. Over the same 4 years, Laravel has matured. It's solidified its position in the development as the development framework of choice for most PHP developers. So now is a good time to update the release schedule to help ease the maintenance burden on the community. So with the change, Laravel 9 that was scheduled for March has now been pushed to September of 2021, and they'll continue doing their weekly patch releases on Tuesdays, but this should make things feel maybe a little bit slower. So the new release cycle doesn't only ease the maintenance burden on the community, right? So this whole idea of like packages every 6 months we're having to update to say like, oh yeah, include version 8 as well, or yeah, okay, go ahead and include version 9 as well. So if you were trying to stay up with the current version, a lot of times when 8 rolled out, you had to wait a couple weeks maybe to kind of update because your packages might not be compatible yet, right? So it not only relieves the stress on the community and the feeling of like you're being left behind, it will also challenge the Laravel developer team to implement really good features without breaking backwards compatibility, so they can get them out before the next release cycle, right? So you don't want to wait a full year to release any features, right? So they're going to want to push in features as quickly as they can. It's just that anything that's going to be a breaking change, they will wait until the following major release to get that in. So yeah, pretty cool. Yeah. Along with that, we've got this thing called Laravel versions. What's that?
Yes, Laravel versions is a new project that features release dates and timelines for security and bug fixes for all versions of Laravel, brought to you by the lovely folks over at Titan. It currently contains all publicly known information about past and future versions of Laravel, including the latest patch release date, bug fixes, and security fixes, and whether or not the version is LTS. Matt Stauffer, who built this application, said, I needed the information in one canonical, easy to find place, but also wanted it API accessible, and that didn't exist. Some of the highlights of the Laravel versions site include containing all publicly known information about past and future versions, all the information in one place on the homepage for easy browsing. All the information is available via an API. You can also get general information about specific major versions by going to laravelversions.com/version or /API/versions/version. You can also get info about your app's specific version, including whether it's getting security fixes, whether there's a later patch version available, and so on and so forth. Laravel Versions is free and open source, and Matt has a few more issues open on the repository for future ideas to make it even more useful, and contributions are welcome. You can check that out at laravelversions.com.
That's cool too that it has like the LTS flag on there to show you if it's an LTS release or not, right? So it shows the last LTS release was 6, the next one will be 9. That's really nice. I know that I referenced the PHP sort of version, on occasion where I go back and see like, oh yeah, that's end of life as of this date or whatever. So this will be really nice. And it's got a colorblind mode too, which is actually really nice, really handy. If you click the colorblind mode at the top, it actually puts it all in there for you. Future release, bug and security fixes only or end of life. Nice job. Nice job, Titan folks. We appreciate you. Okay. That's all we've got for releases. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick sponsor read. So Scout, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, is an application performance monitoring tool designed to help us as PHP developers find and fix performance issues without having to deal with these massive applications you have to install on your server. So the nice things about this is that it has a really developer-centric UI. It's also got logic that ties bottlenecks to your source code, so you don't have to go dig around in the code. It helps you find and pinpoint those performance abnormalities like N+1 queries, slow database queries, memory bloat, exactly where they are located. So you can spend less time debugging and more time building your code. They've got real-time alerting, weekly digest emails, and you can rest easy knowing that Scout is on watch 24/7 to help you resolve your performance issues before your customers ever see them. You can get a free 14-day trial right now, experiencing firsthand why PHP developers worldwide call Scout their best friend. They have a new startup pricing plan starting at just $39 a month. And for Laravel News listeners, Scout will donate $5 to the open source project of your choice when you deploy. You can learn more at scoutapm.com/Laravel News. Thanks so much, Scout.
Next up, we have Laravel Console Wizard, which is a package for creating multi-step wizards with complex input inside of the console. Its primary purpose is to collect data for file generators. So the package works by defining a set of steps, and once completed, you can process data for output, generate files, or perform whatever you need to do with the data. It provides you with a text step, a multiple answer text step, a choice, a multiple choice, and a unique multiple choice step, as well as a confirm step. So this is useful if you're, for example, creating users in your application. If you don't have a public application, for example, that you're not having people register, maybe it's an internal application at your business or whatever, and you need to create users. Typically, you might pop open Tinker and just user : create and do whatever you need to do. But then you forget you need to add a role, or you forgot to encrypt the password, so the password's not set or something like that. So using Laravel Console Wizard, you could create a make user command, and it would ask you all the questions. What's the name? What's the email address? What's the password? Or do you want to generate the password? Things like that. And it'll go through, and at the end of it, you've got all of the answers to all of the steps, and you can just go ahead and run that through user create, for example. So this is a package by Shomisha on GitHub from Serbia. So thanks very much for that. If that's something that you are interested in, or you've been trying to figure out how to create a stepped application, definitely do that. It could be useful for authenticating APIs on the command line. If you need to do the whole
interesting, no, that's a great idea.
OAuth, two-step dance, then you could probably do something like this that prompts and sends off the API request and then does all of that good stuff for you. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, like, how many times have you had to create the same thing, right? Like the same exact deal.
Yeah.
That's very nice. Nice job on that. Okay, we've got another package called OpenAPI Initializer. So OpenAPI Initializer is a Laravel package that provides a straightforward command to scaffold an OpenAPI spec file. So once you install the package, you just run the artisan command to walk you through the various questions to make the Open API specifications. So PHP artisan open API :create. Then the plugin will walk you through a bunch of questions to create your specification file, such as, well, actually, yeah. Sorry, I'm looking. I thought I had the questions here. It does not. But things like what the versions of the Open API you are using, your contact name, email, description, what URL you can find it at, et cetera, those sorts of things. So you can find more about this package, you get full installation instructions, and view the source code on GitHub, or check out the link in the show notes. All right.
Next up,
simplifying
we have
service providers.
Yeah, Laravel Package Tools is a package from Sparsy that provides an opinionated base service provider you can use to streamline the registration of your package's config files, migrations, commands, and more. And I can't think of too many people better positioned to say this is a good way of doing it than the lovely folks over at Sparsy. So this is essentially a package that you install when you're creating a package. And when you create your package as service provider, you extend from this is going to get fun. When you are creating the service provider in your package, you can extend from the service provider provided by the package service provider and have a public configure package method. And then you can set the name of the package file. You can define whether or not it has a config file, whether it has views, translations, migrations, if there's any commands that you need to expose. And Sparsy will also provide you with a skeleton Laravel package that you can use as a template for your next package project, which uses the package tool service provider out of the box. So if you've ever found yourself in a position where you're making a package and you're constantly going back and forth to the documentation to figure out how do I add the config file, how do I do all of this kind of stuff, this is largely conventional. So the has config file method, for example, doesn't accept any parameters by default, and it will just assume that your configuration file is named for your package. So if your package is called Laravel-news, the assumption will be that your config file will be Laravel-news.php, and so on and so forth. So definitely streamlining that, especially if you're doing a lot of these things. So check it out if that's something that you're after.
Absolutely, yeah. Every single time we make a package, I always am like, okay, skeleton Laravel package from Sparsy. It's like,
yeah,
the one-stop shop there, right? Like you said, like few people are more qualified to basically dictate how you should do it than Sparsy. So, okay. I thought we had. You just messaged me, hey, we talked about Square last time. We definitely did, and I almost was like, I'm pretty sure we did. Okay, so. How about organizing Laravel applications with actions? Did we talk about that one? Man, it feels like we did at some point.
I think we did. Definitely sounds familiar.
I know, right? I think so too.
We talked about something. We talked about something to do with the actions. Let's double check. No, it was user. Maybe we did not. I'm sure we did.
I feel like we did too. Yeah. Hey, if we didn't, then you should definitely go check it out. At laravelactions.com, but I'm pretty sure we did. I'm quite sure we did. Yes, we definitely did.
No, we talked.
That's on me, man.
Nah, we talked about organizing this. Hang on a minute. Yeah, we did. We absolutely did.
Okay.
Who left
That's
you in
on
charge
me.
of
I don't
the show
know.
notes?
I know. I'm so sorry. I think I must have. Let's see here. Organized. Yep. Man, I just grabbed too much. I grabbed too much of the stuff. Yep, that's why we had, what am I doing here? Laravel string markdown macro.
Never mind.
Never mind. Okay.
The string markdown macro you can talk about. We haven't talked about that one. But before we move on to that, let's talk about using Basecamp's Hotwire package service functionality in Laravel.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So, Caleb Porzio and Daniel Colborn, D. Cole, recently talked about Hotwire on their podcast, No Plans to Merge, right? And so they talk about sort of some of the differences between this and Livewire, maybe. But if you're interested in that discussion, you should go check that out over here. But this is a package that allows you to use Basecamp's Hotwire in Laravel. So Turbo Laravel is a package that gives you a set of conventions to get the most out of Hotwire in Laravel. So Turbo is inspired by the Turbo Rails gem, which is just a Ruby package. giving Laravel developers a similar experience as those developing with Hotwire in the Ruby world. Hotwire is an open source tool built by Basecamp that powers their Hey email service, and it provides an alternative approach to building modern web applications without using much JavaScript and sending HTML instead of JSON over the wire. Turbo Laravel supports Turbo features outlined by the Hotwire documentation, and for those of you who are new to Hotwire, here are the descriptions of each technique from the website. Also, want to just mention that Caleb and Daniel went into this sort of the listing here as well. Again, if you're interested in a little more details, you should definitely go check that out. Turbo Drive, which accelerates links and form submissions. Turbo Frames, which decomposes your pages into different independent contexts, which scope navigation and can be loaded lazily. You have Turbo Streams, which deliver page changes over WebSockets. And then you have Turbo Native, which lets your Majestic monolith form the center of your native iOS and Android apps with seamless transitions between the web and different native sections. So, along with this package, there's also a Turbo Laravel Test Helpers companion that allows you to add macros and assertions to help you test your applications that are being built with Turbo Laravel. All in all, this seems like a pretty comprehensive package. So I think as soon as I saw Hotwire, I knew this was on the horizon. I knew somebody was going to be building this. So yeah, nice work. I'm going to try and find out who built this.
It is Tony Messias from Brazil.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. Very cool. So if any of you are kind of like, big fanboys of the folks over at Basecamp, I certainly am as well. Yeah, you might. I mean, maybe you're following this Hotwire stuff pretty closely, and you think, hey, I'd like to give that a try. This is a great way to do so in your Laravel app. So thanks, Tony. Nice job.
Yeah.
All right. Did I put the Soul Query Builder method in there twice? Oh my gosh, what is wrong?
Relax. We talked about the Soul method being added to the framework in the 8.23 section, but this is understanding how the query builder method works. So as we said earlier in the show, Laravel 8.23 introduces a Soul method on the query builder, which retrieves a single record, but also has additional assertions. So Soul is useful when you need a single row from the query and assert that the query only matches one record, and it's advantageous when you expect one record, but want absolute assurance that it is the only record that exists. When more than one or less than one record exists, Laravel will throw an exception for you. So Paul Redmond, who put this article together put a quick demo in with a quick demo application to go through, how this works and what you can expect and things like that. So he's just going through tinkering in the database and looking at the differences between using the first method on the query builder or the get method, and so on and so forth. So, for example, a first or fail would give you a model not found exception. Likewise, the Soul method would give you a model not found exception if the record does not exist. If it exists multiple times for whatever reason, then you would get a multiple records found exception. So this is all about making sure that there is one and only one record for a given search criteria in your database. I can't think off the top of my head when this would be useful. However, there's obviously reason for it because this was added to Rails and it is now found its way into Laravel. So if you have suggestions for what you might use this for, then let us know. Hit us up on Twitter.
Absolutely. We've got this Laravel string markdown macro as well. So sometimes you'll have markdown data that you just want to convert into HTML to display on your website. So there's a lot of modern PHP packages that make this really simple, but we can streamline the conversion really simply using a string macro. So we've had macroable classes and things like that inside of Laravel for a long time. But Laravel's str class does not currently have a method for converting Markdown to HTML out of the box. So, to the rescue, our good friend Mr. David Hemphill recently shared a cool way to convert Markdown into HTML with a simple, pretty macro for the Illuminate support string class. With a service provider boot method, you can define a custom Markdown method using his code that he tweeted out there on Twitterland. So Paul took and made a copy-paste friendly version of the code in his screenshot and shared it in this post. So you can use it now to convert Markdown data into safe, renderable HTML. You could also accomplish this by defining a class and hooking it up via the service provider, but adding it as a macro works just fine. So that's great. So David Hemphill making his way into the Laravel news. Who would have guessed it?
Just quietly, I tried to PR a Markdown helper into the framework in 2017, and I was no plans to merge by Taylor.
Oh my, Taylor, come on. Try it again. Give it a second chance.
Yeah, too late now.
They'll be like, it's a breaking change, version 9, September.
That's it.
Well, hey man, I think that's all we've got today. This is a quick one, you know? It was 30 minutes almost on the button. So we'll wrap it up here. This was episode 135. Thanks so much again for joining us. If you like the show, we would really appreciate it if you'd rate us up 5 stars. And what does that help us do anyway? I think they say it helps other people who have similar interests find it, right? That's what it does?
There's an algorithm somewhere that looks at popular podcasts and bumps them up the list somewhere.
Those tricky Apple engineers over there. So anyway, 5 stars would be great. Of course, if you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Always love to hear from you. And if you'd like show notes for this episode, you can find them at podcast.laravel-news.com/135. That's all we got, folks. Thanks again to our sponsor, Scout. We appreciate it. And we will see you folks in a fortnight.
That we will.
See ya.
Bye.